Hi, welcome back to the Azure Data Factory training course. This is section 2, and we're going to go over what is Data Factory. So, let's go. Data Factory. What is it? The best way I can describe it is a tool for orchestration. There's been various tools like Data Factory in the past, and some of them you'll be familiar with if you're from a SQL Server background. So SSIS was like a predecessor of Data Factory. Now you've got the Data Factory being a PaaS service. It's not available on-prem, but SSIS was, and SSIS also integrates into Data Factory. But you would use it for mainly orchestration. You can use it for transformation. It's a low-code application, trying to make it very easy to onboard. And I have to say, going from my time of SSIS heavily using that, ADF is the breath of fresh air. And if you didn't quite know, Azure Data Factory, the acronym is ADF. There's other clouds have a variance of this, like AWS has AWS Glue, and GCP, I'm not sure, which is Google Cloud. I'm not sure what that one is, but that's not for today. But basically, if you need to move data from a storage account to a SQL server, from storage account to storage account on a automated basis or with triggers, alerts, etc., or even doing basic, well, you could do advanced transformations in there, but anything in that sense of data movement, ADF is a very strong tool to use. There's a joke at Schuberg that I'm like a carpenter with ADF and I just chisel away very nicely, making it work for all different scenarios. But you can use it for all different bases, and I hopefully can show you many different scenarios of how you can use it throughout this course. So yeah, that's a basic introduction to what it is. Then I would like to give you a history lesson. I like to do this in my presentations because I can show you how the tool evolved. I think it's good to know what the various applications were before, and you never know what the future will be. So DTS, Data Transformation Services. It's not one I ever used, but it came around the year 2000, and it stayed until SSIS 2005. That one I do know very well. There was a lot you could do, but you really had to know how to use it, and the flexibility of the automation wasn't incredible. It was okay, but yeah, you had to really know SSIS, and debugging it, ooh, yeah, the bad times. ADF version 1 came around in 2015, and that was also a PaaS version, but quickly within 2 years in 2017, ADF version 2 that we use today is now there and still is. And then 2019, I've used, so actually going back one point, ADF version 2, I've used a lot and still use today heavily in many different environments. But Synapse, we did adopt. There was many free courses going around from Microsoft, and you'll be there with a few people, and they kept doing these Synapse training courses. I did it twice, actually. And it was, maybe I started using it in the year 2021. It seemed like a cool concept. But there was a lot of stuff missing, which I'll go through later on in the course. But as an example, basic alerting was missing from the pipeline runs, which is actually in Data Factory, but not in the Synapse version. Yeah, I'm from a mission critical company. I need alerts, and I don't want to have to build them myself when I already had it in a different tool. A lot of frustration there. But Synapse came around, and it's not really official, but that thing is dead. One of the product managers actually said they are putting the full focus into Fabric. So yeah, good way to go into Fabric. 2023, Fabric came out. That's still around. There's still a lot of work going on to it, but as with Synapse, they've took some features but don't have them all. So be very careful if you're going to use Data Factory and Fabric already. Make sure you look. Microsoft have done a very, very good differences page to show you what actual Data Factory is and what the Fabric version is, which is very, very nice. In Synapse, that was not around. So you can actually get a bit of benefit to know if you're using certain critical functionality, you can check what's happening in Fabric. That's quite nice. So we're talking about Data Factory, we're talking about Fabric, SSIS, all these different things. But if we're actually looking about different tools in the data realm to see how many are out there, bam, there is a lot. I'm going to only show you Data Factory, and there's going to be many more videos that I can show you different data tools. These are not just Microsoft specific tools. These are all different tools in the data realm, and this picture is from 2023. So 2025, woo, it's getting incredibly busy. I'll check that off because it's a lot of images on there. But you get my drift. There's a lot of tools out there. I'm only going to focus on one, but there's many different tools that do the exact same thing as Data Factory. That was not an image of all of them. That's just showing all different things. So if you are new on a data journey, as this is a beginner's course, is why I say it, is focus on one area. Don't try and use all those tools. Don't try and know everything. I'm an expert in SQL Server. I did that over years, and then I started to branch out to other things like Data Factory because I used it, like SSIS. It just evolved. But if I try to focus on everything, you're going to focus on all the different things and be a master of nothing, which is not good at all. You want to have an expertise in somewhere. As I just showed you various tools out there, I also want to show a simple overview of ADF. Not, but I like this image. This is on the Microsoft Learn page, and if you do take the time to read it, it's very informative. And it will go through all the different parts of Data Factory and a scenario basis. So you have to read it round and follow it round. It's a bit like a comic strip. And my Azure Heroes logo actually fits very well here. But this is a cool one if you want to read through it. You don't have to, because my course is going to do it for you. So let's get rid of the busyness. Now, let's get into Data Factory. I want to go over the fundamentals of Data Factory because this is like the parts that you need to know. If you don't know this, very hard to get started. So these are the core ones. You'll see the names on there. You've got pipelines, data sets, data flows, activities, link services, and integration runtimes. Each part of the course, I'll go through these in various detail or in-depth detail in some parts and show you examples of how to use them. Just a brief overview. What you have is pipelines. They will be like the actual unit of different tasks you can put inside. So you could have like a copy task, which you're copying data with, and a pipeline can be as big as you want. I normally scope these down to a certain size of being you can execute a pipeline. Or pipeline, it can go nested as anything, but there's a reason behind that, which I'll go through later on in the course. But it's very good for the monitoring overview, just to give a little heads up of what I'm talking about. So you have pipelines. And they are just an actual unit of tasks, like a job. If you have SQL agent jobs, you have tasks in there. It's probably the best reference I can do. Data sets. Data sets are when you have a connector towards the data, you want to select which table. So if you have it's called the link service. If you have a link service pointing towards a certain SQL server, you need a data set to say which data you want from there. And that can be dynamic, which is going a bit more advanced, but you can have like a hard-coded table. Say, I want to go to users table, and you can grab all the different parts in there as a basic example. Data flows are the low-code transformation part of ADF. I'm not best friends with them. I will show you how to use them. The reason why I'm not best friends with them is that they have like a 5-minute startup time. So if you don't use them correctly, there is ways to use them, and you can do transformations. And if you get the time to live right and you use it quite excessively, you keep the Spark cluster there, etc. Then you don't have the constant. But I've seen it in the wild where they did a simple copy from A to B, and they had to wait each time for the Spark cluster to warm up and then transfer. And it took, what is it, 2 megabytes? It took a second. But you're waiting 5 minutes for that to happen. So if you're going to use data flows, please watch the section about data flows to give you more heads up of how that works. Activities, they are what's inside. So the tasks, whatever name you want to throw at it, but you'd have like a copy activity. You can have a function app trigger. You can have a SQL agent or store procedure, let's say, activity. And there's various ones we'll go through, and I can walk you through the basic ones and more advanced as well. Link services I've kind of covered already, and they are how you connect to different data sources. It could be a Mongo API of Azure Cosmos. It could be Azure Cosmos itself, SQL Server, storage account, you get the drift. Last but not least, the integration runtimes. It's very good to know the in-depthness of these because there's multiple types. So I'll be going through them because you have like an auto resolve, which is the default, which is just in smack bang in Microsoft shared pool, not in a private network, but you can use it. And if it's public, if you don't mind going to the public internet, yeah, free reign, and they are fast and powerful and scale very, very well. But there's multiple types, which we'll go through later. So I've spoken a lot now, and in my previous section, let's do some demos. Let's see it. So having a look here, this is actually the Azure portal, and I have a data factory already here. So you'll see I've got a resource group, etc., and just a subscription. And I also have my data factory, which is ADF Kruge. Over this course, you'll see I like to name everything Kruge. I don't know why, but I do. You get the Azure Data Factory Studio. This is like the main image that you come to, and you can launch it. So let's do so. We'll launch Azure Data Factory, and I'll give a quick walkthrough of some of the basics of it as an overview of what I've already just gone through. So just give this a second to load. Okay, now it's loaded. We can see there's already some pipeline recent resources that I've visited when I've done other talks at different conferences. So this is the main page that you come to when you load it. You'll see different parts here which you can do, which is showing you a brief overview, and they do have some learning capabilities within an ADF, so you'll get some documentation. Learning Center. So within Azure Data Factory, you can actually click to Learning Center. If you're from the home page, you'll see here. So what you can actually do, go over here to Learning Center, and you can see all different parts. It's got tutorials, a quick start guide, videos, and even templates to give you a bit of a boost to get started, which is nice. So if we go over here, you have Manage. And this is where you mostly are when you're configuring different parts of Data Factory. You've got the Data Factory settings, you've got a connector upgrade advisor, if you really wanted to go through that, link services, which I explained. So these are the connectors. So you've got a few examples in here. Don't mind the naming convention. These are just for demos. Obviously, you should name it correctly, and I'll go through that later on, but do not name it like this. You'll get in a hell of a time trying to figure out what is what and what it's used for, which resource, etc. Don't do this. Integration runtimes, one which I explained. The auto resolve is the default, and this is what I call the engine, and I'll go through that really in depth in the integration runtime section, and you'll be able to get a lot of grips of more about it. You can connect Microsoft Purview in there directly. You've got ADF in Microsoft Fabric. Obviously, they're pushing it, so they're really trying to get you into Fabric. Be careful. It's not fully mature enough for the ADF yet if you're using certain functionality, just to be clear. You can connect Git configuration. You can do this by Terraform, Bicep, and normally what you have is one data factory, which is the source of truth, and the others are deployed on top of, like incrementals and so on. So you actually only have one connected to Git. You can actually export the ARM template. Triggers are very useful for when you want schedules. So if you want to schedule a pipeline to run at 4 a.m. every day, you can do so. Global parameters, extremely useful. You see they're just default values currently, but you would use these when you want to also pass in certain parameters throughout different pipelines, or even if you want to inject it into a linked service. If it's possible, I'll show you various ways of doing so on a different CI/CD section. Data flow libraries, you have credentials, also very useful if you're having credentials to go into resources, or if you have a managed identity. You add that as a credential, and I'll show you how to use that for SQL Server, etc. I use that a lot, which is very, very useful. You could use different type of credentials, but managed identity is extremely useful because you're not keeping the password. Custom and managed key. Depending on what your legislation or policies are, that you need, that you may need to use a customer managed key. For a company which is financial, they are in the EU, you need to own your own keys. You can't have the Microsoft ones. I'm going to say this many times in the course, with a customer managed key and Azure Data Factory, listen, you have to create that upon first creation of ADF. If you create Data Factory and want to then add the customer managed key, not going to work, sir or madam. Have to create it on creation of ADF, and that will get stored in a key vault. You link it to the key vault or whatever magic you want there, but do not try and do this after. And if you're gonna wipe ADF, make sure you've got it connected to Git. Otherwise, you're gonna have a big issue of losing stuff. So be very careful. Customer managed key is done as you create ADF. Why would you need that? That is where you encrypt your data and you have a key for it, etc., and you manage your own keys. If you don't need that, ignore what I just said, and you can use the managed key from Microsoft. I've never done this, but you can have outbound rules. Why have I never done this? Because what we normally have is a self-hosted integration runtime, which I'll go through later, and that normally controls the egress of what goes out and goes towards an Azure firewall or some other component or resource of Azure. I've not actually put in my own outbound rules of what you can go towards in that sense. What you'll also see is monitor. So this is where you can see pipeline runs, trigger runs. You have change data capture. That's been in preview for a very long time. I will show it, but I don't know how useful it's going to be, because it's still, I've used this years ago for demos. The company I work for, we can't use anything in production, and Microsoft say not to use anything in production that's in preview due to the functionality changing, and it's in preview. It's not a fully generally available product. It could also just be, yeah, they could be doing what, God knows what on there, the main point. You have the integration runtimes again. You can also do a data flow debug. You get alerts and metrics, and this is where you can put in the different parts. So a new alert rule: if my pipeline fails X amount of times, if my pipeline fails once, who to SMS, email. What you also have is the main parts when you're building pipelines of so what you also have when you go here, you'll see the pencil. This is author. So yeah, hence a pencil apparently. But it's where you actually design the pipelines, data sets, data flows, where you'll see the different parts. So I have a few examples in here. I won't go too in depth. This is just an overview of Data Factory itself. But you'll see data sets in there, and these are the ones where you choose the certain data you want from a linked service. And then your pipelines, for an example, you'll see if this one loads, the different components in there. Look up task here, and it executes another pipeline. So you get different ones. Normally you would name them like this, so you can folder them. You can name I would name one as a master, and that would do child pipelines. Let's say you have a parent pipeline and child pipelines. Data Factory also, what you do, you can also choose if it was on a Git repo, I will set that up on a different section, but you can choose which branch you want. So you have different variants, and then they would differ, and then you have to publish it. You do a pull request. You'd have to merge that, and you have like a main branch which you can use, and you have live mode. There's different modes of Data Factory, but it can go fast. So please, if you miss anything, watch it again, or each section will go very in depth about the different parts. So if you're a bit confused now, don't worry, watch the section which is like either about pipelines or integration runtimes. I'll explain it further. This is just to show you a brief overview of how ADF looks like. So I don't want to go too in depth, and some things may confuse you with what I've said. It will all become clearer as we go along. Okay, well, thank you for watching. That's the end of this demo, and I think the end of this section. So that was section 2. We covered an overview of ADF, the history, and some components in there. What are the fundamentals? I hope you like it. Section 3, we'll go into key concepts and components. So some of use cases and concepts behind Data Factory, and more in depth into the main components of them to explain it a bit further. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.